Hi, I'm Maria Fontanazza, editor of MedTech Intelligence, and I'm here at the Combination Products Conference with Susan Alpert, and
Hello.
She is the principal of SFA Consulting. So, Dr. Alpert, I'm curious, you're giving a presentation about clinical evidence, and so when folks are in the product development process, when there's that convergence and we're talking about combination products, what are some of the challenges that are faced in gathering clinical evidence?
Well, so clinical evidence is really product dependent. So if you have a pharmaceutical or a biologic and you're putting it on a medical device, when you're thinking about the clinical, you can't be just thinking about, well, what would I do for the medical device? You have to think, what do I need to understand about the contribution of the pharmaceutical or biologic, and that might be a longer term contribution than just the activity or placement of a surgical implant or a surgical tool. So you have to think differently in terms of how long do I need to follow patients. What are the safety issues that might come up because of the pharmaceutical, the biologic? They have different issues around safety. Where on the device side, we're very used to looking at shorter term clinical trials because the effect of the safety around the device is acute safety. And there might be longer term efficacy, but it's a very different kind of measure. So remembering to measure both safety and efficacy of each of the components, because they both contribute, is one of the challenges. So designing the trial has to think differently. It has to capture different information. And for that, it sometimes means that you're working with different people. You're working with clinicians that are monitoring patients over the longer term rather than the surgeon who's doing the implantation right now, because they're not the right people to be evaluating drug safety. So it's challenging in both timing and in who you work with. And that's just part of the issue when you're designing clinical work for a combination product. Other issues that you need to think about are there questions about interaction between that drug or that biologic that you're putting on or with the device and other drugs that the patient takes? Again, that impacts who comes into the trial. What are the inclusion and exclusion criteria if you're dealing with maybe an allergy to one of the coatings, or if you're dealing with drug-drug interaction for the disease that you're trying to also treat with the device. So there's a lot of different questions, some of which drug device companies are not used to asking. On the other hand, if your combination is you're now delivering a drug with a device, most of the questions are about the drug. Most of the questions about the drug, and understanding, if you're a drug company, understanding that the device questions are early. The device questions are only around delivery, and then that goes away. And then you're just in a drug trial. So helping people think about how do you understand the other product, and when you evaluate the other product, what are the issues around patients for the other product? Those are challenges that we're just not used to if we're used to working either in drugs or in biologics or in medical devices. So you have to broaden your thinking. And one of the ways to do that is to bring the right people in, the right clinicians, and people from the company that's manufacturing for you the other kind of product, whether it's the device people, the biologics, drug people. But having people sit down and talk through what do they normally look at in their trials, what are the time frames for the visits in their trials, and then matching them to the ones that you need to do for your product, and seeing then how to create a clinical trial that's efficient, effective, and is going to get you what you need, which is enough data to support a product. I also think that for device companies, it's a little hard because we're used to doing single trials. You know so much about a device before it goes into the first human that a single trial is sufficient, because you've chosen the materials, you've chosen the design, you've designed it for the patient population, you've designed it for the user. Now you're in an environment where on the drug and biologics side, they're not used to doing that. It's really experimental because they don't know a lot about the risks and the reactions that patients will have to those products. So they think differently about the clinical environment. And marrying those takes some challenging conversations and discussions between people who have very different expertise to really understand, how do we do this well? Drugs and biologics are used to multiple trials. Devices are used to maybe a small pilot and one pivotal. That's a different world. So that impacts, well, who's going to pay for it? How long is it going to take? How large does it need to be? So it's a lot of different questions. So it's a real challenge. It's all doable. You just need to bring the right people to the table and ask the right questions. And then you can.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your
You're
time.
welcome.
Thank you.